Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. We will start shortly, so we are waiting for people to join.
Hello, Dennis. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning. Good afternoon, Yuta. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, again. I know it's at the top of the hour. Let's just wait 2 more minutes and then I will give the floor to IMSB. Okay, Jen, I think you can start now. And when Ambassador Janina or Ambassador Excel comes, we will alert you.
Thank you, Dennis. So we can start in a little past the time, but good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day to everyone. Thank you for joining the virtual stakeholder consultations on Division 2. My name is Jennifer Chung. I am one of the co-conveners of the informal multi-stakeholder sounding board We welcome all of you here to give us your thoughts. A quick welcome. And I'd like to give the floor now to Mr. Duong Chu. He is the director of DESA, and I'd like to give the floor to him for a few words of welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to speak. I'm actually just going to be very brief, and basically it's a message of appreciation and gratitude to everyone for your time and support to the WSIS+20 consultation process. We are very grateful to everyone, and we would like to put on record our sincere appreciations first to the IMSB for organizing today's consultation and for the continued commitment you have been bringing to the WSIS process. We would also like to thank the co-facilitators from Albania and Kenya. The two ambassadors have been remarkably available and engaged throughout the process, including during the very intensive weeks of consultations over the past few months. We are equally grateful to our colleagues from UN agencies and the regional commissions for consistently bringing their unique perspectives and technical expertise to the discussions. And we also want to acknowledge the entire IGF community, including the NRIs, for ensuring that their views from all parts of the world would be reflected in the review process, and that no one would be excluded or left behind in the consultations on the outcome of WSIS+20. We're now approaching the final stage of the WSIS+20 prepared process. As you know, the GA high-level meeting will be taking place next week. Today's stakeholder inputs on Rev 2 of the outcome document will be carefully considered. The co-facilitators will receive a full summary of the interventions that we are hearing today, and the Secretariat is also following up the consultations very closely. This week, tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, informal negotiations among member states will continue. So we hope that the next week will be a moment of celebration, marking 20 years of WSIS and reaffirming the shared vision that has brought this community together. Many of you have contributed in different ways throughout the year. And for those joining us in person next week, there will be a number of side events and opportunities to engage. We look forward to seeing you here. And for those unable to travel, the high-level meeting of the General Assembly will be fully available on the UN and Web TV. We greatly appreciate the time and energy you stakeholders have dedicated to this process. WSIS has always belonged to people and to multi-stakeholders, and its vision is very much a people-centered vision, inclusive and development-oriented. And as we move into the next phase, we should all continue working together to ensure that the digital technologies benefit everyone and everywhere. Thank you, Jennifer, for giving us the floor. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Director. I noticed we have Ambassador Yamina who has joined us. If I may call on Ambassador Yamina to say a few words of welcome for us before we go straight into the consultations. Ambassador Yamina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the colleagues that are connected online today, and thank you very much, Jennifer, through you, the sounding board, for creating this opportunity and also for inviting us to here. We'll be all throughout your connections to here. So we are still even today in the listening mode, because I believe that it's important that during this last mile of negotiations of WSIS+20, we create the same space for everyone to participate, to engage actively, and to shape the WSIS+20 that everyone wants to see for the next decade. So as Director Zhuang Zhu already informed you, we have arrived now to the moment that after Rev 2, so the revision 2 of the document, which has been delivered a few days ago, we are now in the phase of preparing for consultations and negotiations with member states that will take place starting from tomorrow, the next 3 days. And then we'll, as co-facilitators, together with the input that will come from this meeting today, we'll try to shape the final outcome document. There have been a lot of discussion. We've been very pleased for the support that we have had from all stakeholders in different events that we have participated. We are really grateful to everyone for this kind of rich engagement that we have had, especially in important topics that shape WSIS for 20 years and from now and hopefully to the future. We have been also very much convinced that the multi-stakeholder approach that has characterized WSIS is an added value for the process. So we tried as much as we could to involve everyone, to give space to everyone, and to have everyone's opinion reflected on the outcome, on the draft outcome document. As you may understand, we have had many inputs. It has been not easy to reflect every of them, but we hope very much that everyone will continue to support our work during this last week. It's exactly 1 week that we have at our disposal. So beside the fact that we have had a lot of commonalities in our approaches, and especially this has been reflected in Rev 2, there are still some issues that remain pending. So I would like very much to call to everyone to guide us on how you would like to see those topics to be evolved during this last mile of negotiations. I'll try to be brief and to leave more space to all colleagues, because it's more important at this stage to hear from you. And I conclude this one with my thanks and gratitude for everyone's. And as Director Zhu has already mentioned, I'm looking forward to see everyone in New York, and those who cannot manage to follow us very closely during the 2 days of high-level event. And hopefully, I think that we can be optimistic that the outcome document will be a document that will reflect the developments, the positive achievements, but as well as will be ambitious for the digital agenda that we hope to see for the future. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to hear from you. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Janina. So before we go to our first speakers, just a few moments of housekeeping so you understand how this is going to work for all of you. You will see that speakers will be promoted to panelists to be able to speak. You'll be prompted by Zoom to accept this panelist role. Please do that. Please watch out for this prompt and hit accept, so you're able to turn on your mic and your camera. You will all receive 3 minutes to make an intervention based on the input to revision 2. You'll see a timer on the screen to count you down. And then we, of course, encourage specific proposals to be based on the paragraphs. If you are unable to complete your intervention within 3 minutes, you may send your inputs to the email address that our Secretariat will put into the chat. Now, you will be able to know when it's your turn, because we will post the speakers' order into the chat every 10 speakers. So I think we already have hopefully our first 10 speakers over in panelists. I will be advised if that's not the case. But without further ado, I would like to give the floor to the very first speaker in the consultation. The floor is yours now, Anna Osterlink from Article 19.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Anna Osterlink, and I speak on behalf of Article 19, a local to global human rights organization focusing on freedom of expression and related rights. During our WSIS+20 advocacy, Article 19 has collaborated across stakeholder communities, including through the Global Digital Rights Coalition for WSIS. I would like to start with one general remark, and that is on a question that I've heard many times: sustainable development versus human rights. There is no versus. It's not about choosing one above the other. Sustainable development and human rights are mutually reinforcing. Human rights are universal, belonging to everyone, everywhere, without distinction. Therefore, human rights drive the equitable, inclusive, and sustainable development that works for all people, as per the 2030 Agenda. Moving to Ref 2, in the interest of time, I will focus on the human rights section and refer to our written inputs for other sections. As a general point, we strongly recommend returning to the zero draft in this section, as that represented strong text with all language taken from agreed UN language, and therefore reflecting member states' existing obligations. But there are 5 issues that stand out with Ref 2. First, paragraph 67 strengthened the language on human rights due diligence by adding, I quote, regular, comprehensive human rights impact assessments, end quote, in line with OP 20A of Resolution 78/213. 2. Add OP 20B of Resolution 78/213 as a new or into an existing para, reflecting states' existing obligation to refrain from or cease using digital technologies that are fundamentally incompatible with human rights. 3. Para 68 should reflect more comprehensively existing private sector obligations as per the UN Guiding Principles. 1. All human rights apply to the entire life cycle of all digital technologies, not only new and emerging ones. And 2, private actors also need to prevent and mitigate harms and should ensure human oversight, accountability, and legal responsibility. 4. Para 73, we suggest returning to the zero draft, reflecting verbatim PP 14 of 78/213. I quote, refrain from undue restrictions such as internet shutdowns, arbitrary or unlawful surveillance, or online censorship, end quote, which more comprehensively captures the ways in which actors restrict or monitor internet access and communication. And then finally, we suggest reinstating paragraph 89 of the zero draft on the crucial question of surveillance, which also includes the narrowly defined principles of legitimacy, legality, necessity, and proportionality in accordance with international human rights law. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And now we go to Ihita. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce I will try. Ahita Gangavarapu. The floor is now yours, Ahita.
Thank you,
From
Jennifer.
Yes.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hi, everybody. I'm Ahita Gangavarapu, and I'm the coordinator of Youth IGF India. We are a platform recognized by the UN IGF, empowering and engaging youth in the internet governance space. We appreciate the efforts made to integrate stakeholder inputs on the zero draft, including those from youth communities in the current revision. And we view this as a very encouraging step towards a more inclusive process. At the same time, there is still an opportunity to further strengthen the pathways through which these shared aspirations translate into action and accountability. A people-centered digital future requires not only common values, but the mechanisms to deliver this. In that spirit, please allow me to highlight 4 areas within the document: internet governance, standards, cybersecurity, and youth. Within internet governance, we welcome the recognition in paragraph 98 of more than 170 national, regional, and youth IGFs as contributors to the multi-stakeholder ecosystem. We also note paragraph 3, which highlights the importance of participation of all relevant stakeholders, including youth, in shaping the information society. To fulfill this vision, we encourage reinforcing terminology such as sustained and meaningful participation of youth and underrepresented groups in governance, policy development, and implementation, rather than limited to participation. With standards, paragraph 109 recognizes that international standards are essential for interoperability, innovation, and development of ICTs. To support the commitment in paragraph 52 around open, secure, stable, interoperable, and reliable internet standards, the development should remain transparent, inclusive, and multi-stakeholder to ensure that standards support human rights, accessibility, and fair competition. Moving to cybersecurity, within paragraph 53, which reaffirms that building confidence and security in the use of ICTs must be consistent with international human rights law, and also with 54 paragraph, which recognizes the rise of malicious cyber activities that undermine digital development. Our proposal is for paragraph 69, 70, and 75, make important commitments of human rights and even explicitly call on states to refrain from internet shutdowns. So to build on these paragraphs, building a strong base, the document could more clearly acknowledge the risk of unchecked surveillance, including by encouraging states and companies to adopt robust safeguards against intrusive deployments. Lastly, with respect to youth, paragraph 12 recognizes the specific information and technology challenges faced by children and youth. However, youth are still primarily framed as beneficiaries rather than co-shapers of digital policy in the document. To achieve this intergenerational fairness, we encourage supporting youth leadership and participation in follow-up and implementation, and a language to support the same. Finally, for paragraphs 119 to 127, they define an important follow-up architecture to 2035. To keep the WSIS vision truly people-centered, we would like to see a stronger assurance that youth and other stakeholders will be systematically involved in monitoring, midterm reviews, and in shaping the agenda of 2035 high-level meeting, rather than consulted at the margins. With this, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ihita. Now we turn to Elizabeth Bacon from Public Interest Registry on behalf of TCCM. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Good morning, co-facilitators, IMSB members, and colleagues. My name is Elizabeth Bacon, and I am a member of the technical community, speaking on behalf of a technical community coalition for multi-stakeholderism. TCCM is made up of members of the Internet's technical community, the companies, organizations, and groups that operate the critical infrastructure and services at the heart of the Internet. Our members come from all regions of the world to ensure a global technical community perspective. We so appreciate this opportunity to comment on Revision 2 and sincerely thank the co-facilitators for their proactive engagement and commend them for their leadership. We are also grateful to the IMSB for convening today's session and for their support throughout this process. TCCM appreciates the careful balance Revision 2 strikes between different interests. The document is a firm foundation for successful conclusion to WSIS+20 at the General Assembly next week. Specifically, we wish to highlight 3 points in relation to Revision 2. First, we strongly support a permanent Internet governance forum with an appropriately staffed and resourced secretariat within the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs. Second, we welcome recognition of the IGF Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, which provides important strategic guidance for a balanced IGF program. Third, we support the concrete timeframe for Secretary General's proposal on sustainable IGF funding, including a mix of core UN funding and voluntary contributions. Diverse funding will support ongoing financial stability. We stand ready to be part of the Secretary General's stakeholder consultation on this important issue. TCCM believes in an Internet that is open, free, global, secure, resilient, and interoperable is vital to realizing the WSIS vision. We are firmly committed to the multi-stakeholder approach as the best way to deliver this and reiterate our previous comments that also apply to Revision 2. Again, specifically, we strongly support reaffirmation of the multi-stakeholder cooperation and the commitment to maintaining and improving coordination and cooperation between all stakeholders concerned with the Internet governance. We support the reference to the Net Mondial +10 guidelines as a practical measure to achieve this. We also welcome the recognition of the technical community as a distinct stakeholder group. We support the recognition in Revision 2 that fragmentation would undermine the Internet as a critical global facility for inclusive and equitable digital transformation. Our full statement we will submit to the record, and we do appreciate this time. And we thank all of our colleagues, the co-facilitators, and IMSB again for all of the dedication through this entire process. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Now I go to our next speaker, It is Kusai Al-Shati from 3arf.com. Kusai, the floor is now yours.
Apologies, I was muted. Do you hear me, please?
We can hear you. Please go
Yes,
ahead,
please.
Kusai.
We welcome the revision 2 and the update in revision 2, especially with what is related to internet governance. And we would like again to reaffirm that if we would like to reference any third conferences or events, we would like this to be kept within the conferences or the conventions that is within the WSIS and the internet governance or the UN related conferences, rather than mentioning third conferences regarding stakeholder participation or the definition of a stakeholder or similar definition as is mentioned in the paragraph of internet governance under the subheading of internet governance. Again, we support the definition of internet governance as it is mentioned in the revision 2 and as it is referenced in paragraph 34 of the Tunis agenda. That is what we have to mention, and we appreciate that, and thank you.
Thank you, Kusai. And now we go to our next speaker, which is AMH Baslur Rahman from the Bangladesh NGOs Network for Radio and Communication. Baslur, the floor is now yours.
Distinguished delegates, it is an honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Bangladesh NGOs Network for Radio and Communication, Bangladesh Internet Governance Forum, and the Pact for the Future Bangladesh CSO process. We commend the effort reflected in the second revision of the WSIS+20 outcome document. We warmly welcome the progress achieved and congratulate the co-facilitators and IMSB and all delegation on the diligent work that has gone into preparing revision 2. We are also honored to be associated with the Association for Progressive Communication APC, the Global Digital Justice Forum, and the Global Digital Rights Coalition for WSIS, and the Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum Working Group for WSIS+20. We highly value their contribution to this process. We wish to express our sincere appreciation for the pivotal role played by the International Telecommunication Union in stewarding the WSIS process and the establishing the WSIS prize, which have helped to showcase concrete and innovative practices from around the world. Bangladesh NGOs Network for Radio and Communication has been engaged in the WSIS process since 2000, including throughout the preparatory phase. We are humbled that this effort have been recognized through the WSIS prize and 8 subsequent WSIS champion award. This recognition further strengthens our commitment to advancing people-centered, right-based, and development-oriented digital transformation. Distinguished delegate, to further strengthen implementation, we believe the WSIS action lines C1 to C11 should be revised, revisited in light with the current context, explicitly linked with the WSIS+20 process and updated accordingly. In particular, we underscore the importance of 4 points. Number 1, further strengthening the localization of WSIS and IGF implementation at the national level, including through establishment of a national observatory mechanism. Number 2, ensuring the global commitment are translated into concrete, measurable, and national outcome. Number 3, promoting meaningful engagement by UN resident coordinator offices at the country's level and relevant UN entities in the implementation of the WSIS action lines and the IGF process. Number 4, ensuring adequate and predictable budget allocation to support the implementation of WSIS action lines and IGF related initiative by the civil society organization at the country level. distinguished delegates, it is our collective responsibility to our shared privilege to work together towards a more inclusive, just and sustainable digital future for all, anchored in the principle of digital good governance, human rights and sustainable development. Finally, I would like to thank you to the IMSB for organizing this important meeting. I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Baslu. And now I will go to our next speaker. It is Judith Hellerstein from DCAT. Judith, the floor is now yours.
Hi. Thanks so much to the ambassadors and to the two who are the two co-facilitators, and to Jennifer Chung and others from the IMSB for holding this important consultation. My name is Judith Hellerstein, and I'll be speaking as one of the coordinators of the Dynamic Coalition on Accessibility and Disability. A position of the IGF-DCAT is that despite years of advocacy, the digital divide facing persons with disabilities is only mentioned very tangentially throughout the WSIS+20. We have submitted consultations both for the zero draft, the elements paper zero draft, and the first revisions. And we also submitted detailed text as suggested to put in. But we find that while the text, the revision 2 is filled with many grand ambitions and is very people-centered and inclusive, it tackles many issues, but there's very little about persons with disability, and very little and actually no mentions of trying to include persons with lived-in experience of disabilities into the text. For 20 years, we've built a digital world that has systemically excluded 1.5 billion people. The digital divide is not only about connectivity or 4G access. It is about millions of uncaptured videos, captioned videos, unnavigatable websites, and the inaccessible apps that define the online experience for persons with visual, auditory, motor, or cognitive disabilities. The document itself, as we see in paragraph, I think it's 66, although it refers to the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities as an individual part of international human rights, the legal imperative, we think, even though it could not be clearer, that when public digital infrastructure is inaccessible, the issue is not merely poor design, it is the violation of human rights. In our response to revision 1, we noticed several areas to be improved and offered textual comments. One example is in paragraph 22, we mentioned the CRPD and desire for all things to be accessible. But we do not focus on the implementation requirement of accessibility standards and guidelines and enforcement of these standards, such as the Worldwide Web Consortium's accessibility guidelines, otherwise known as WCAG 2.22. We also, in paragraph 27, we speak of local content, but we also need to ensure that these formats are delivered in a manner that's compatible with accessible technology, such as screen readers and other things. So we throughout this document, we'll send it. I know my time is short, but we see there's a lot of things that we pointed out in revision 1 that we did not get into revision 2. And we hope that these can be done, because we see this as a historic opportunity to move beyond tokenism and enshrine digital accessibility into the heart of truly inclusive information society. Without explicit commitments and concrete actions for persons with disabilities, and without the active leadership of people with lived experience of disability, this vision cannot be realized. So we thank you again for all your help and all your willingness to listen to us. And we'll send our full comments in to the IMSB and to the working group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith. I think Secretariat has also mentioned in the chat where you can send this to. The email is there. Now I'll go to our next speaker. It is Alexei Trepikawan from the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. Alexei, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Chair, Ambassador Yanina, and esteemed colleagues. ICANN welcomes Revision 2 as a clearer and more balanced basis for the final WSIS+20 outcome document and appreciates the considerable work that has gone into this updated version. Consistent with its earlier comments on Internet governance, ICANN supports the continued affirmation of the value and principles of multi-stakeholder cooperation. This commitment is reflected throughout the text, alongside the reaffirmation of an Internet that remains open, global, interoperable, stable, and secure. ICANN also appreciates that the distinct role of the technical community continues to be clearly recognized in this version. Protecting the technical underpinnings of the Internet is essential to its continued stable and secure operation. In this regard, ICANN supports the addition of the reference to a predictable and transparent enabling environment that encompasses policy, legal, and regulatory frameworks in paragraph 48. In paragraph 91, the term fragmentation of the Internet is not as precise as fragmentation of the Internet architecture, which appeared in the zero draft. As this is a small editorial change, we hope the more precise term may be used in the final document. ICANN supports the reaffirmation of the need to promote international cooperation to identify, address, and prevent the risk of fragmentation of the Internet. We respectfully suggest adjusting the order of the verbs to identify, address, and prevent, which is clearer and more aligned with common usage. Regarding the Internet Governance Forum, ICANN supports the recognition of the work of the IGF's Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group and the IGF Leadership Panel in paragraph 98. DESA has played an important role in supporting the IGF, and the IGF Secretariat would benefit from the appropriate staffing and resources referenced in paragraph 100. ICANN also welcomes the call for the Secretary General to submit a proposal to the 80th General Assembly session on diversified funding for a strengthened IGF Secretariat, as reflected in paragraph 103. ICANN appreciates the establishment of the IMSB as part of this process and recognizes the tireless efforts of the IMSB in supporting the WSIS+20 co-facilitators through proactive engagement across Internet stakeholder groups. ICANN hopes that the IMSB contribution will be reflected in the final outcome document and considered as a model for other relevant UN processes. Chair, this concludes ICANN remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexei. Now I go to our next speaker. It is Abdul Baset Al-Bar from the General Authority for Communications and Information Technology from Libya. Abul Baset, the floor is now yours. If we do not have Abul Baset on the list, we can go to the next and we can come back when he returns. Our next speaker is Shumaila Hussein Shahini from Tech Global Institute. The floor is now yours. Okay, and we can now go to the next speaker. The next speaker is Tamiya Shuto from the International Chamber of Commerce. Tamiya, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm pleased to speak today on behalf of the International Chamber of Commerce, the institutional representative of over 45 million companies in more than 170 countries. I'd like to start by thanking the IMSB not only for hosting today's consultation, but for their sustained engagement with and amplification of the voice of the multi-stakeholder community and supporting the continued openness of this process. We also greatly appreciate the significant work by the co-facilitators and their teams that has gone into REF 2. It clearly retains the balance, focus, and future and action-oriented nature of REV 1, and we recognize the considerable effort required to maintain that equilibrium while accommodating a wide range of views. In the interest of time, I will limit my comments to a few selected areas where we feel improvements could still be made. On the section concerning enabling environments for digital development, I would like to offer two reflections. First, while the overall language on investment remains constructive, the removal in paragraph 48 of the reference to the effectiveness of certain approaches in promoting investment raises some questions. We are unsure whether this change was simply an effort to streamline the text, or it is intended to signal further willingness to reduce references to investment and enabling policy environments throughout the text, which we would find concerning. If the shared objective is to close digital development and connectivity financing gaps, experience shows that one-off financing aid and short-term project funding are not sufficient. What is required is sustained public and crucially private sector investment. Private capital, expertise, and long-term operational capacity are essential for building and maintaining resilient digital infrastructures and services, supporting innovation, and ensuring that progress is scalable and sustainable. Clear support for investment-friendly policy environments is vital to mobilize these resources. Weakening this recognition risks sending the wrong signal and overlooking the substantial contribution that industry makes across regions. Second, we note with some concern the removal of language in paragraph 47, recognizing the importance of stakeholder participation in standards development. Industry, academia, the technical community, and civil society provide critical expertise and operational knowledge that significantly strengthen standard-setting processes. Most international standards bodies rely on this multi-stakeholder input precisely because it produces more effective, interoperable, and widely adopted outcomes. This should be continued to be recognized. Turning to financial mechanisms, we appreciate the addition in paragraph 64 that opens space for action line facilitators and stakeholders to engage in the proposed task force. However, the requirement for this task force to report directly to the General Assembly may risk shifting what should be a practical, solutions-oriented dialogue into a negotiation and narrow opportunities for meaningful contributions from non-governmental stakeholders. For the task force to succeed, it will need flexibility, a technical focus, and genuine multi-stakeholder participation. Therefore, it might thrive better in a multi-stakeholder context, such as the WSIS Forum or the IGF. ICC stands ready to help coordinate private sector input into the work of this task force. I will stop here in the interest of time, but would like to close by noting our strong support for the text's continued commitment to the multi-stakeholder approach, the permanent mandate for strengthened and fully supported IGF, enabled to continue to convene stakeholders worldwide to discuss the broad array of digital policy issues in an open and inclusive manner. Thank you again for the opportunity to contribute.
Thank you very much, Tamea. I see some questions in the chat about the order of speakers. I think Secretariat will be able to post that, our next 10 speakers in order presently. With that, I will go to our next speaker, Marina Meira from Derechos Digitales. Marina, the floor is now yours. If we don't have Marina online right now, we can go to our next speaker. It is David Storti from UNESCO. David, the floor is now yours.
Dear Chair, Ambassador Janina, ladies and gentlemen, UNESCO welcomes the revision 2 of the document and thanks the co-facilitators as well the members of the informal multi-stakeholder sounding board for their work. The draft document includes many of our suggested proposals, which includes a better clarification of the articulation between WSIS process and the Global Digital Compact in coherence with the other recent resolutions calling for integration of GDC commitments into the work of WSIS action lines. Furthermore, as the UN agency responsible for promoting and defending freedom of expression, we appreciate the reference to Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and to misinformation and disinformation. We also appreciate the strengthening of references to digital literacy. In this sense, para 60 may say, and I quote, we call on all stakeholders to promote media and information literacy and digital skills in order to empower individuals. We are glad also to recognize the importance of developing the capacity of civil servants and judiciary in AI and emerging technologies. As the UN Cultural Agency, we also welcome paragraph 38 dedicated to culture, but we believe that it can further strengthen by including specific reference to protecting the rights of artists and creators, including appropriate remuneration and safeguarding of their intellectual property rights, in line with the Mondial Cult Declaration recently adopted by 150 countries at our global conference in Spain. Similarly, para 27 may make reference, and I quote, to reiterate the need for development of local and culturally diverse content and services. Finally, WSIS should explicitly reference knowledge societies, a core WSIS concept, which is sitting at the heart of today's world and challenges. It is knowledge societies, not just information society, that the concept explicitly referenced in the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. In an AI-shaped world, knowledge underpins education, culture, scientific cooperation, access to information, and the full realizations of human rights. I wish to conclude saying that UNESCO stands ready to continue its commitment to the facilitation of the multi-stakeholder implementation of WSIS action lines, also through the UN Group on Information Society, the UNGIS, the WSIS Forum, and the IGF. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, David. I will now pass the moderation to my fellow IMSB member, Chris Buckridge, and he will take us through the next group of speakers. Chris?
Okay, thanks very much, Jen. Happy to take the reins for a little while here. And we'll move very quickly on to our next speaker, which is Phio Thierry Luyện from the Youth IGF and Southeast Asia Youth IGF and Myanmar Youth IGF. So Phio, please.
Thank you, distinguished co-facilitator at IMSB and other colleagues for this chance to deliver the message. My name is Phio Thierry Luyện. I am a coordinator of the Myanmar IGF and as well as the South Asia IGF, contributing to the WSIS+20 state master process as APSC youth. I would like to acknowledge the acknowledgement process and revision too, and from the youth perspective, we strongly welcome the recognition in the paragraph number 41 that digital technology can play the transformative role in the supporting environmental sustainability. We think that leveraging digital innovation for climate resilience is essential, but we would like to stress that this benefit must be paired with a policy that meaningfully minimizes the environmental cost of digitalization. In the line, paragraph number 42, we would like to share our deep concern about the rapid rising energy demand of the digital growth, including AI system, data center, IoT infrastructure, and the device manufacturing. Young people are increasingly aware that and seeing carbon footprint of the digital technology threaten to undermine the climate progress. We therefore call for the transparent reporting on the energy use, stronger efficiency standards, and accelerated integration of the renewable energy across the digital ecosystem. For our generation, digitalization must not be the intensifying of the climate vulnerability we already face. On the concern raised in the paragraph number 43, we strongly echo the land over the skyrocketing level of the e-waste. Young people across the regions are bathing the repair culture, leading the recycling drive, and also advocating for the circular model. But these efforts cannot be succeeded without systematic support. We would like to call for the implemented coalition, regional cooperation, and also global multi-stakeholder collaboration for safe recycling technology, corporate accountability of the product lifecycle, and investment in the community-level waste management solution. In response to the paragraph 44, we fully support the shift towards the sustainable consumption and production pattern. But we, as a young people, really determined that this is the product design for the repairability and responsible end of the life management, developing international standard for the sustainable design. Reuse and recycling is essential and must include the youth voices who are often early adopter and innovator in the circular practice. Finally, according to paragraph number 45, we strongly support the call for the inclusive multi-stakeholder transparency and the broader approach to align with the digital and environmental policy. You must be meaningfully included in the process, not as a future leader, but as a present stakeholder who will be the shape mostly directly by this decision. Ensuring sustainability across the entire life cycle of the digital technology require the policy that listen to you and also let the youth to get involved while reflecting the community reality and priority both environmental justice and digital equity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fio. Moving to our next speaker, we have Isra Rosas from the Internet Society. So Isra, please.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Janina, colleagues from the Sounding Board. On behalf of the Internet Society, I would like to start by thanking you for organizing this virtual stakeholder consultation. We still believe that these opportunities to inform your deliberations are more crucial than ever as we approach the final stages of the WSIS+20 review process. Our analysis of revision 2 of the outcome document stands by the substance of our comments provided for revision 1. Our ask is to carry forward these essential conditions, which we'll share with you in writing, as priority items for the final phase of the informal negotiations. In paragraph 17, we still see an opportunity to enhance it by referencing relevant multi-stakeholder work regarding safeguards for digital public infrastructure. Concerning the section on the enabling environment for digital development, we see an opportunity to align the text, particularly paragraph 49, with the WSIS+10 outcome document. The WSIS+20 review presents a unique opportunity to reinforce and build upon the commitments made 10 years ago. We're pleased to see that the text referring to internet governance privileges the multi-stakeholder approach, including reference to the Net Mundial +10 guidelines and the IGF's mandate. We see a crucial opportunity to incorporate this vision into paragraph 103 by including the existing IGF funders and other stakeholders in the discussions regarding the forum's long-term financial sustainability. Finally, we respectfully urge the co-facilitators to reinstate the references to enable UNGIs to receive multi-stakeholder advice in paragraph 119. The multi-stakeholder approach has proven to be one of the strongest tools for incorporating diverse expertise to tackle challenges and address opportunities within the digital ecosystem. We stand ready to contribute to such an effort. Excellencies, colleagues, I'd like to close my participation by thanking you for carrying out our insights forward. I wish you success in the upcoming round of informal negotiations. The Internet Society community, including our chapters and organization members, we are ready to support you along this final stretch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isra. Moving on now next to Marcus Kummer from the Diplo Foundation and the Geneva Internet Platform. Marcus, please.
Thank you, Chris. I hope you can hear me. Like other speakers, I would like to start by thanking the IMSB and the co-facilitator for their excellent work and their inclusive approach to this important process. Let me start by building on what I had said at the very first consultation. We were very concerned about the intersessional work of the IGF, and now the dynamic coalitions are particularly pleased to know that they are now explicitly mentioned in the revised version with all the other constituent elements of the intersessional work. Speaking now in my personal capacity as WSIS and WGIG veteran, I would like to build on what I said in the first consultation on the zero draft, which seemed to imply that there is a difference between digital cooperation and internet governance. This implied reducing the scope of the IGF to a narrow range of issues, mainly related to the more technical components of internet governance. This is not in line with the spirit and the letter of the Tunis Agenda. The Tunis Agenda not only provides a working definition of internet governance, but it also fleshes out what it means in the devoted chapter on internet governance. Ref 2 is more open, but could still be improved to counter this misconception. I submitted in writing 2 small changes to the Rev 2 that would broaden the scope related to internet governance. In para 86, I would like to suggest including the term description. The paragraph would then read, we reaffirm the description of internet governance as contained in the Tunis Agenda for the Information Society with the working definition as and so on as it stands. One key para in the Tunis Agenda, para 35, makes it clear that internet governance, and I quote, encompasses both technical and policy issues. This notion could easily be introduced in para 87 of Rev 2, which would then read, we reaffirm the internet governance encompasses both technical and public policy issues and must continue to be global and multi-stakeholder as it stands. Lastly, para 90 of Rev 2 introduces the concept of enhanced cooperation. We could broaden this para by also including all aspects related to internet governance. This would then incorporate by reference all the other descriptive paras of the chapter on internet governance of the Tunis Agenda. A revised para would then read, reaffirm that internet governance and so on, and end with including all aspects related to internet governance and enhanced cooperation. There are more paras in the Tunis Agenda that make this clear, but I presume at this stage of the negotiations, it may be too late to introduce any change related to these elements. But to cut a long story short, I think it's important that we recognize that nothing in the chapter on internet governance in the outcome document should be construed as an argument to narrow the scope of the IGF agenda. Thank you for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Our next speaker, invite Adebunmi Akinbo from DNS Africa Media and Communications. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chris. Dr. Adebunmi Akinbo for the record. Distinguished Chair, Excellencies, esteemed colleagues, I wish to state this day our own foundation for moving forward. We represent a unique entity, a media platform operating as a social enterprise. Our mission is to bridge the final mile of connectivity through community networks and leverage the deep trust inherent in faith-based engagement to promote lasting peace and social cohesion. Our engagement with the WSIS+20 review is focused on ensuring the digital revolution leaves no one behind. We applaud the draft's commitment to core developmental pillars. Specifically, our view is anchored in supporting the paras related to capacity building for rural areas, which aligns with Action Line C4. We must move beyond infrastructure to digital literacy. Furthermore, the provisions addressing the mitigation of digital divides, Action Line C2, and the crucial support for indigenous people, Action Line C5, are non-negotiable for our organization. These are the communities our networks serve directly. Through our continued contributions on the IMSB, we advocate for inclusive media governance. The lessons learned from a fractured world must inform our digital future. We believe that true global digital prosperity requires a commitment that transcends national and corporate interests. We must champion the unifying principle that is the foundation of digital cooperation, which is one internet, one world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adebunmi. Our next speaker is Giacomo Mazzoni from Eurovisioni. Giacomo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and apologies if I don't wear the traditional costumes from Italy as the previous speaker. I will do next time, sorry. I want to thank you first, the DESA and the sounding board, Jennifer and Chris and Amrita, for hosting this opportunity that is very important for exchange. And I want to thank especially Janina, Ambassador Janina, Buongiorno, and Ambassador Locale for the time that they dedicate to the process and their commitment. That's very appreciated. We welcome the new revision of the document, the progress achieved compared to previous version. In particular, we welcome Article 96 about the evolution of the current IGF, 98 making IGF a permanent process, 101 creation of UNSG task force studying innovative solution for the financing of the IGF. Point 38 about the relevance of cultural expression and diversity, that even if lacking an expressed indication of the Convention 205 of UNESCO, that is the reference point for that. And Article 111 about the development of common indicators and roadmap all across the current UN digital processes, the IGF, the WSIS action lines, and the GDC commitments, because this is fundamental for the future of all the process. But there are, of course, points that could be improved, and I hope that even if we have very short time, can be improved in the next hours and days before the summit in New York. In particular, we think that it's important to improve on point 20 and 26. There is, we appreciate the reformulation of the numbers about the current situation of the access to the connectivity in the world, and the reference to the meaningful connectivity, that is very important. But if it's true that connectivity is available, technically speaking, in large parts of the world, this means that what prevents the 1/3 of the world population to access it is not technical question anymore, not only, but becomes more and more a question of unaffordability of the devices, of the tariffs, of the services, and so on. So, as we have said in the report of the PNMA policy network in the IGF, and here is the reference I'm mentioning, there is a need for public policies to provide conditions for access that are open to everybody, equivalent to what today we have in the free-to-air distribution of contents. On point 33 of the document, we regret that there's been erased the part of the phrase on technology impact on jobs. What has been skipped, safeguarding employment rights and welfare, because this contradicts the principle that is on the rest of the document, that technology needs to serve humanity and not the interest of very fews. On point 48, we would like to reintroduce the concept that there are best practices and policies already identified that prove their effectiveness and need to be promoted. On point 54, we regret that we are lacking a reference to election processes that need to be safe, need to have a special safeguard. That is very important. And on point 104, 121, we think that there is a better wording for implementing coordination among the various digital initiatives of the UN. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giacomo. Our next speaker is Nick Ashton-Hart from APCO Worldwide. Nick, I believe you're here.
I am, and theoretically can also be heard.
And in practice too. Thanks.
Firstly, thanks obviously to the IMSB and the co-facilitators for hosting this. It's been another great example of how a process in New York can involve stakeholders effectively. I think this whole process is a high watermark, really, in my experience of New York-based processes involving stakeholders. With respect to the text, we think that version 2 is in most respects an advance over version 1. The changes related to the IGF are positive and welcome, as so many others have said. While it's not specifically stated here, I know in speaking to many developing countries, there's an interest in seeing how the IGF can add more value for developing countries than they feel that it does at present. And I'm guessing this will get discussed during the informals, and I hope we find some way to meet that request without changing the nature of the IGF itself, which I don't detect any calls to do that in order to achieve this. On paragraph 64 on the financing task force, we see that this has been improved, but there are still some issues, we think. In the first case, it focuses entirely on quote unquote future financing. But this could exclude the discussion of existing financing mechanisms and the value they add and perhaps improvements that can be made. It also has no role for discussion of what best practices in applying resources to meeting WSIS objectives are, or what lessons learnt on achieving those goals there are. Financing is part of a package that's needed to deliver change. And the other part of that package is the enabling environment in which resources are deployed. And in this case, there are known successful ways to address many of the key challenges of WSIS that are mostly siloed within different UN agencies or multilateral institutions. Surfacing these would help give a toolkit to especially developing countries on what has worked in the past that might be relevant for them. And we think this task force really is an opportunity to capitalize on that. Also, it seems to us the reporting in 2026 is highly ambitious given the scope of this. It would be better for this to report not to UNGA in 2026, but to CSTD in 2027 as part of its WSIS progress review mandate. On confidence and security, we still find this a somewhat problematic section in no small part because it's focusing on two first committee processes which have very poor stakeholder participation modalities. And so in many ways, this section goes in the opposite direction of the rest of the text. We note paragraph 54 tray, and while we understand the motivation for this and we understand the importance of these issues, many of these are undefined terms, and I think it's quite ambitious to say you will counter all forms of these various objectives. I don't know how that could be effectively accomplished. I don't know that anyone else does either. It's a nice goal, but this really belongs more in the human rights section, it seems to us. And the last line says that these measures must be done also protecting privacy and freedom of expression. We think that these, given the nature of these measures, they really should link to all of international human rights law and not just freedom of expression. And with that, I will leave you. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Nick. Our next speaker is Marin, or next intervention is from Marin Mohammed Ashraf. Marin, are you online? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Marin, and I speak today on behalf of IT for Change and the Global Digital Justice Forum. I wish to emphasize the following para-specific suggestions. First, on internet governance, we urge that para 89 of Rev 2 should be replaced by para 104 of the Zero Draft. This is to ensure that the language here refers back to the agreed upon language in para 29 of the Tunis Agenda on the international management of the internet being multilateral, transparent, and democratic, with the full involvement of stakeholders in their respective roles and responsibilities. In relation to strengthening human rights, we urge that para 17 of the Rev 2, which recognizes digital public goods and digital public infrastructure as critical drivers of inclusive digital transformation and innovation, should also underscore the importance of transparency, safety, and security in the design of society-wide digital systems to promote public trust along with safeguards to protect human rights. We also like to highlight the importance of do no harm safeguards in this design and development of digital public goods. We note that para 52 of the Zero Draft, which referred to the rapidly growing quantities of electronic waste and toxic waste, has been restored as para 44 in Rev 2. However, we are concerned that this has not been accompanied by a restoration of the reference to the Basel Convention on the control of transboundary movements of hazardous waste and their disposal. In the human rights and ethical dimensions of the information society section, the omission of para 82 of the Zero Draft has resulted in a dilution of the language pertaining to the obligation of states as duty bearers. It is critical to restore this paragraph. We also urge the restoration of reference to safeguarding employment rights and welfare in para 33 of Rev 2, as foundational labor guarantees should be safeguarded in the platform economy. In relation to digital inequality, Rev 2 has not addressed our concern about the absence of an explicit commitment to address the governance deficit in the digital economy that has led to market concentration and monopolies. In this light, we urge the introduction of a new paragraph 83A, which recognizes digital sovereignty and right to development as central to global AI governance. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marin. I'm now going to pass on to my IMSB colleague, Amrita Chowdhury, who will continue the moderation. So Amrita, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And the next speaker is K. Mohan Raidu. Mohan, if you are there, you could start speaking. Mohan, if you could unmute yourself. I guess we'll go to the next speaker. I do see Mohan in the room, of course. Bojana Kostic.
Yeah. Am I unmuted? Yes.
Yes, you are.
I'm following it closely. May I take the chance for the next time?
Okay, thank you, Mohan. The next speaker would be Bojana Kostic from the Global Forum for Media Development.
Yeah, thank you, Amrita. Thank you, everyone, for organizing this call, and good day, everyone. My name is Bojana. I work as a digital senior policy advisor at the Global Forum for Media Development, and throughout this process, we have been independently, together with our colleagues from Global Digital Rights Coalition, involved in strengthening pretty much everything related to human rights framework and ensuring that the WSIS remains embedded in this framework. What is important for us and what we would really like to welcome is the kind of not only preserving but also strengthening the references to independence of the media, safety of journalists, and in particular we very also welcome and applauded the call for all stakeholders to involve in strengthening the independence and media independence and public service media and creation of this so-called enabling environment and condition for journalism and journalists to thrive. This paragraph is very important. It's paragraph 74 in the Rev 2 document, but we would like also to provide two additional points that resonates pretty much with what my colleague Anna Osterling from Article 19 mentioned, and these are the references that are not only relevant for human rights broadly, but also for the media journalists whose independence we are trying to kind of protect throughout this document. In that regard, we believe that paragraph 76 presents an excellent opportunity to actually introduce the language on and commitments to the member states from refraining from the use of technologies that are impossible to operate in compliance with the national human rights law and that pose undue risks. Again, these language comes from the already agreed resolutions of the UN, in particular 78-213 and paragraph 20b. And one more small but important addition to this paragraph refers to regular comprehensive human rights impact assessments of digital technologies, again coming from the agreed UN language, Resolution 69-166, paragraph 4. Second contribution at this point refers to paragraph 71 of the Rev 2 that we believe needs to be expanded, not only to kind of by reaffirming the commitments to Article 12 of the Universal Declaration, but also to kind of really clearly highlight practices that are practices and legislation regarding surveillance of communication, interception of communication, mass surveillance, all in the right goal with upholding the right to the privacy. These two important contributions can actually ensure that WSIS framework remains future-looking, given that the review processes are actually following up after the in a great advancement of digital technologies. Finally, we also have a few remarks in regard to private sector accountability that we will contribute to our written statement. And I would just like to kind of one more thanks to everyone involved in this process, especially the co-facilitators for ensuring the participatory inclusive process. And we hope, as Ambassador Janina mentioned, that this last mile of the process also remains open and inclusive so that we can all share our visions throughout the process. Thank you and have a great day and good luck, everyone.
Thank you so much. And the next speaker is Bertrand de la Chapelle. Bertrand, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I hope that you're hearing me properly. First of all, like everybody else, a deep gratitude to Ambassadors Janina and Locale for an amazing process and a very open approach to these consultations. I want to focus on one thing, which is related to the IGF, and particularly the articulation between the paragraphs 102 and 103 of the Rev 2. I strongly believe that sustainable funding for the IGF cannot be seriously discussed without addressing at the same time the necessary organizational evolution of this forum. Both are inextricably connected. The IGF, on the one hand, needs significant more resources to achieve its full potential, which is at the moment still untapped. But on the other hand, funders will not commit ongoing support without a clear vision of the improvements that have to be implemented. And this is basically the catch-22 that we've been struggling with for many years now. So I strongly believe that the paragraph 102 that speaks about the continuous improvements of the IGF and the paragraph 103, which speaks about the request to the Secretary General to provide suggestions for improved funding at the 80th session of the UN, should be connected more explicitly. I will submit in writing some potential formulations, but the deadline of the 80th session of the UN General Assembly is too short to have the thorough discussion that needs to take place. I have suggested previously on the Rev 1, which was not incorporated in the Rev 2, the idea of a WIGIG-like working group or procedure that would be steered by the UN Secretary General or any other actor. I see that it is not incorporated in the Rev 2, but I nonetheless believe that it would be extremely important to have the discussion on funding coupled with the discussion on the improvements and having a multi-stakeholder process for that without depending exclusively on the Secretary General for suggestions. And the solutions and the proposals could be made at the 81st UNGA and not the 80th. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bertrand. I think Poncelet is not there in the call. So the next speaker would be Laurie Schulman. Laurie, over to you. Laurie, you're muted.
Oh, I was being polite. Am I unmuted now?
Yes,
Am I
you are.
unmuted now? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. It's great to see everybody, and I echo the thanks and appreciation for the co-facilitators in organizing this sounding board and for having this open consultation so close to the UNGA meeting. It really shows your dedication to engaging the community at every single step. We want to especially thank the WSIS+20 Secretariat, UN DESA, for providing the WSIS+20 process updates and for its strong support of the Internet Governance Forum over the years. We appreciate this opportunity to intervene on behalf of our more than 6,600 member organizations from 182 jurisdictions, representing nearly 38,000 professionals. These include brand owners for major corporations, small and medium-sized enterprises, law firms, and nonprofit organizations. Our intercommunity also includes government agency members, professors, and law students. We support the multi-stakeholder process that has been characterized by the WSIS process since its inception and now provides for the many inputs made by government institutions, the private sector, civil society, the technical and academic communities in the course of the preparatory process for the WSIS+20 review. And as noted above, many of whom are affiliated with INTA through our diverse membership. In reviewing Revision 2, we have some general comments, which I propose. We also have some written proposals, and in the interest of time, I will focus on a single proposal. First of all, in general, we support the recognition of digital development and digital inclusion as critical instruments in enabling progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals and reaffirm the importance of cooperation to ensure that the benefits of digital innovation are fairly distributed and do not exacerbate existing inequalities or impede the full achievement of sustainable development. We also recognize the need for an open, fair, and non-discriminatory environment to foster the development of new technologies and modes of equitable access to them, including compensation of the fruits of one's labor. With these principles in mind, we are pleased to see the recognition of intellectual property rights as a driver toward digital cooperation. IPRs are key to creating environments that provide the opportunities for entrepreneurs and innovators, especially SMEs and women-owned businesses, to reap the benefits of their new products and services. At the same time, they foster open, inclusive, and safe digital spaces by providing the opportunity to locate and hold accountable those who create new technologies and the services that emanate from them. The ability to profit from and to be held accountable for inventions, goods, and services and creative works fosters prosperity and the means for a sustainable future. To that end, we have suggested text. We have 4, but I will focus on one, as I said, in the interest of time. We recommend an insertion after paragraph 124, which talks about open systems and open digital goods. We would like to see added at the end of this paragraph, at the same time, we recognize that digital public goods and open digital content represent just one model for driving innovation, inclusion, and access. We reaffirm that alternative models, including commercially developed, IP-protected digital solutions and services, also have a legitimate and significant role in the information society. We encourage member states and stakeholders to support a diversity of models, open, proprietary, and hybrid, to ensure that regulatory and financing frameworks do not unduly favor only open source, but also respect and incentivize privately developed innovations that contribute to development, creativity, and digital inclusion. We thank you for your consideration of our suggestions and look forward to the UNGA meetings taking place next week in New York. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie. The next speaker is Bikram, but I don't think he's there. So the next is Advocate Nandifa Natsaluba. If you can hear us, would you like to unmute yourself?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Advocate Saluba from University of South Africa. We just wanted University of South Africa, and also I'm a member of the South Africa multi-stakeholder. We just wanted to commend the drafters for the revisions, but secondly for the broad inclusion of everyone. Our take is the issue of the digital compact and how the digital compact indicators fit within our WSIS agenda going forward in the IGF. And we would want to make the point that we made in Norway, that for as long as there are no clear indicators, whatever we want to achieve will remain problematic because we must follow the same indicators globally. The second one relates to access to the internet. Once the revision makes more sense, we want to say, if the child in the deep rural is still having to choose between buying bread, to buying airtime, to buying the airtime for the child to be connected, we're still missing it. If we agree that there is a fund at UN level to make sure that Africa is connected, have access. We need to make sure at the various levels that access is made available to the students at all levels, to elderly people, so that we can say that we built the bridge and we have worked with the people through the bridge. So regardless of how good the documents can be, if the access to the internet is still not free, internet is not a right, it's still we still have a long way to go. Thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you so much for this. The next speaker is Avri Doria. Avri, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak again. Very much appreciate the consultations and the depth and extent to which consultations have been held. They are a very important step towards multi-stakeholders decision-making, something that I hope we can continue to progress through. We've made it a little ways in the 20 years of WSIS towards being a multi-stakeholder environment, towards being a multi-stakeholder decision-making process, but we still have so much further to go. And in that light, I also want to mention the IGF. I'm very happy that the IGF is being recommended for permanence. I very much look forward to seeing how that develops and how sustainable funding for an IGF develops. But I also want to sort of recommend several things that have come out in terms of, one, the MAG has to, and it has started, it has to become more than a program committee. It really needs to be something that brings forward multi-stakeholder control, multi-stakeholder organization of what is the IGF, and bring that forward. I also go back to some of the discussions that were made before, some of the recommendations. I want to strongly endorse the recommendations made by Marcus in terms of the remembering what was important in the Tunis agenda, and paying attention to some of the dynamic coalitions and stuff as engines. I also want to just take a little bit of time and endorse the comments made by Article 19 in relation to human rights in this document. They have pretty much been watered down and smoothed out, and it would really be good to see the revision 0 language put back in. Finally, I want to endorse the comments made by Judith Hellerstein for DCAD of being more proactive, more just not tokenism in terms of our support of access and accessibility. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to make comments, and good luck over the next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Avri. The next speaker would be Thobokile Matimbe.
Thank you so much, Chair, for this opportunity. I echo what my colleagues have already stated, appreciating the inclusion of diverse submissions and the coordination of robust contributions from stakeholders. My name is Thobekile Matimbe, and I'm from Paradigm Initiative, an organization that promotes digital rights and inclusion in the Global South. We have made significant contributions throughout the review process, including submitting comments to the 0 draft and Rev 1, and engaging with co-facilitators on several occasions. I start by acknowledging and uploading the permanent mandate move of the Internet Governance Forum, appreciating how multi-stakeholderism is key for Global South actors, and echo the need to ensure adequate resourcing for its mandate for its sustainability. Turning to human rights and ethical dimensions of the information society, I will reinforce that sustainable development goals for communities in the Global South are key and not fully realizable in the absence of respect for human rights, in addition to the reference in paragraph 68, which has already been mentioned in the revision 2. To move towards a genuinely inclusive and thriving information society, however, it's important to reinforce that human rights cannot be severed. They are an imperative. To that end, we would therefore like to see the zero draft phrasing adopted to strengthen human rights language. In specific terms, Section 67 of Rev 2 would benefit from the addition that has been deleted from the zero draft phrasing from paragraph 77 of the zero draft, mainly, I quote, enabling access to information, freedom of expression, privacy being our emphasis, and freedom of assembly and association, as this particularization acknowledges the key human rights that are violated mainly without adequate safeguards for avoidance of doubt. Furthermore, paragraph 75, where surveillance technology companies are mentioned, there should be inclusion of the need for them to take adequate measures to mitigate human rights impacts through due diligence and human rights impact assessments, text already adopted in paragraphs 24 and 25 of the Global Digital Compact. Thank you once again for the consultation so close to the upcoming UNGA, and wish you success in the last stretch. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Jutta, you are next. Jutta Kroll.
Thank you, Amrita, for giving me the floor. For a start, let me say thank you to the co-facilitators and to the colleagues organizing this effort, and also to those who have already given their input in this meeting. As a child rights advocate, I'm speaking firstly on behalf of children in the sense of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, all human beings under the age of 18. And secondly, also I'm speaking as the co-facilitator of the Dynamic Coalitions Coordination Group, on behalf of the Dynamic Coalitions playing an important role in IGF intersessional activities and in capacity building. We appreciate the commitment to address the challenges children are facing in regard of access and specific information and technology in para 12 of the Rev 2. Nonetheless, we think that the several groups also mentioned in this para do face different challenges, which therefore need to be addressed in individually appropriate ways. We also welcome the commitment to ensure every school is connected to the internet by 2030. But as children start having access to digital technologies at an ever younger age, also digital literacy education must start earlier. So not only every school, but also early childhood education institutions like preschool and kindergarten need to be connected to the internet worldwide. We pretty much appreciate the amendment to para 54.3 in regard of countering and addressing all forms of violence, although the wording could be more precise in order to ensure mitigation addresses these issues appropriately. We also suggest, in addition to the commitment to establish and maintain robust risk mitigation and redress measures that also protect privacy and freedom of expression, to oblige industry to implement risk mitigation and redress mechanisms immediately once those practices are detected in their services. We appreciate the recognition of children in para 77 being among the most active users of the internet and online services. In this regard, we recommend to amend with an obligation for industry to carry out child rights impact assessments on a regular basis and act responsibly on the outcomes of such processes. We welcome the mentioning of dynamic coalitions in para 96 as one of the IGF's main intersessional activities of the IGF. In this regard, we suggest also to commit to leverage the potential of the dynamic coalitions through a better and permanent integration of the DC's work into the WSIS process and the IGF mainstream, building on DC's substantive input to the IGF program. Thank you.
Thank you, Jutta. With this, I pass it on to my colleague, Teresa Swinehart, who would take it forward.
Thank you, Amrita. Our next speaker is going to be Henriette Esterhuizen from APC. Please, Henriette.
Thanks very much, Teresa and Riet here. I actually just put in the chat, my colleague Pavitra will make APC's remarks. I had a delayed flight, and so now I'm in an Uber without much battery. So if you could please promote her to panelists, I would appreciate that. Apologies.
Thank you, Henrietta. Can we promote? Just checking if, 1 second. Just checking if we've been able to promote.
Teresa, perhaps go to the person next in line, and that will give your team a
Let's
chance.
do that. That's a
Hi.
very good suggestion. Sophia Longby from Wikipedia Deutschland, and then we'll go back to APC after that.
Yes, thank you very much, Teresa. Excellencies, co-facilitators, colleagues. Wikimedia Germany really appreciates the opportunity to contribute to this consultation, and we thank the informal multi-stakeholder sounding board for its continuous work of including all stakeholder groups in this process. We would like to highlight 4 priorities we see as fundamental for a successful WSIS+20 process and for an inclusive digital future that the Wikimedia movement is a part of. First, strengthening the Internet Governance Forum. We strongly support efforts to ensure the IGF becomes a permanent, predictably financed institution to remain both relevant and practice-oriented. The IGF must evolve. We therefore encourage the Secretary General to bring forward proposals to review and update the IGF's modalities so it can continue to serve as the leading multi-stakeholder platform for digital governance. Second, ensuring coherence across global digital processes. AI governance is advancing in multiple global fora. Rather than forcing convergence, we urge a higher degree of coherence, avoiding duplication, governance fragmentation, and institutional proliferation. AI governance should remain aligned with the GDC and the vision of WSIS, while maintaining clear but not subordinating to linkages to other internet governance structures. Third, anchoring digital governance firmly in human rights and sustainable development. What matters is that WSIS+20 reaffirms universal human rights as a foundation of digital governance, strengthens commitments to an open, secure, and interoperable internet, and includes clear language against practices such as internet shutdowns. As Article 19 already emphasized in the beginning of this consultation, we preferred the stronger language on human rights in the Zero Draft. We also support embedding the 2027 review of the Global Digital Compact within the WSIS+30 review cycle, rather than creating another parallel process. This will also enhance coherence and accountability. Fourth, it is important to close and not just bridge digital divides through sustainable financing. We encourage the creation of a dedicated task force to explore financing mechanisms that can genuinely close digital divides. Large for-profit actors who benefit from the global digital commons should meaningfully contribute here to maintain and expand digital commons. Lastly, the protection and expansion of digital commons and digital public goods is essential. The WSIS+20 process must recognize that open knowledge, open standards, open data, and open source infrastructure are important to enable education, innovation, and democratic participation. We therefore encourage member states to explicitly recognize digital public goods as essential infrastructure and ensure financing models that enable sustainability of open knowledge platforms such as Wikipedia or Wikidata that serve the global public interest. Wikimedia Germany stands ready to support an inclusive and coherent pathway towards WSIS+30, and we hope that there will be a successful WSIS high-level event at ANGA next week in New York. Thank you.
Thank you. And I understand that we are going back to Henrietta. Can you hear us? Okay, we'll come back later. Okay. Our next speaker would be Ellie McDonald from Global Partners Digital.
Thank you, Teresa. My name is Ellie McDonald, and I'm speaking on behalf of Global Partners Digital. I'd like to begin by thanking the co-facilitators and the IMSB for your hard work and efforts to facilitate inclusive dialogue. Throughout the review, GPD has worked with our partners in the Global Digital Rights Coalition to publish multiple inputs to the process. More recently, we've worked with the Internet Society to offer input on Revision 2, which will be available shortly. Building on these contributions, I offer the following comments on behalf of GPD. We would first like to applaud the continued reaffirmation of the value and principles of multi-stakeholder engagement and the reference to the Net Mundial +10 guidelines. The anchoring of the WSIS in international human rights law and the UN human rights system, and the decision to make permanent the IGF, recognizing the need to ensure its sustainable funding and to evolve its working methods. I would also like to offer our thoughts on 3 areas where we still see a need to enhance the text. First, on human rights, we echo the earlier comment of Article 19 and others to restore the language from the Zero Draft. The Zero Draft provided the most solid basis and approach to integrating human rights in the governance of digital technologies and in digital development. To ensure the greatest consistency with international human rights law, we recommend restoring in paragraph 73 the language from the Zero Draft to reflect a fuller range of measures to restrict or monitor internet access and undermine the free and secure use of the internet, including arbitrary and unlawful surveillance and online censorship. We also recommend reinstating paragraph 89 of the Zero Draft, requiring that the use of targeted surveillance complies with international human rights law and the human rights principles of legality, necessity, and proportionality. In addition, we remain concerned by the limited detail about the responsibilities of private enterprises under the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. We see that there is still an opportunity to enhance, for instance, paragraph 73, by emphasizing the duty of the private sector to conduct rigorous human rights due diligence and avoid transfers of technologies incompatible with human rights law, in line with the recently adopted UNGA Third Committee resolution on the promotion and protection of human rights in the context of digital technologies. Second, we wish to note the opportunity to further strengthen the environmental impact section by restoring the reference to compliance with the Basel Convention in e-waste management in paragraph 44, and by recognizing a fuller range of the environmental impacts caused by digitalization, including the natural resource and water consumption of AI systems in paragraph 42. Finally, we see an opportunity to reintegrate the reference to opening the work of the UNGIS to multi-stakeholder advice in paragraph 119. This is a necessary evolution of the WSIS framework, which would enable the WSIS process to continue to play its role to test and embed multi-stakeholder approaches within the UN system. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you. Now I would ask that Wunmi Hassan from the High Tech Center for Nigerian Women and Youth. Is Wunmi on? No? Okay. Our next speaker then would be Israel Colejo, Latin American Campaign for the Right to Education. Please.
Thank you for the opportunity. I could not start without echoing what my colleagues have already mentioned to strengthen the human rights language in the declaration. My name is Israel Coelho. I'm here representing the Latin American Campaign for the Right to Education, a regional network of civil society organizations that is part of the Global Campaign for Education and also the Global Digital Justice Forum. I thank the organizers and co-facilitators for the commitment to hear different stakeholders and the opportunity to provide inputs to this consultation that we find to be of key relevance for the future of the right to education. We appreciate that education is mentioned in the document, especially in paragraph 36, and that Rev 2 does not reduce the discourse on Rev 1 and the Zero Draft on that matter. However, the document still has margin to be enhanced under a human rights framework. In order to achieve that, we call for the following 2 points. First, paragraph 36 should express concern about the application of certain technologies in educational settings, such as artificial intelligence or facial recognition, that may legitimize surveillance practices and lead to the mass collection of students, teachers, and educational professionals' data. This is an area carefully regulated by many national legislations, including those on data protection, and should be reflected in the final version of the document. Second, paragraph 84 on artificial intelligence should call states to guarantee public education about AI, strengthening the field of investigation of critical studies on artificial intelligence in education, and provide adequate teacher training on the use of digital technologies, including the internet and AI. I end this input by reminding us all that public education is a human right, and that quality public education is fundamental for humanity to navigate the digital transformation safely and critically. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If I could turn it over to our next speaker then, Fernanda K. Martins from Fundación Multudes. Thank you.
Thank you, co-facilitators, and thanks to IMSB for creating this space. I speak on behalf of Fundación Multitudes, an organization working from Latin America on the intersections between gender justice, environmental protection, and digital governance. Our comments on Revision 2 highlight structural gaps that remain particularly relevant for the Global South. First, Rev 2 makes important progress, but several elements still fall short when compared to what member states committed to in the Pact for the Future. Afro-descendant people explicitly recognizing the pact remain entirely absent. Reference to women and girls appear without an intersectional lens. There is no acknowledgement of how race, ethnicity, class, territory, or disability shape gender digital inequalities. The reference to sovereignty equality is formal, but does not address the real asymmetries that limit countries' technological autonomy and capacity to shape digital futures. Second, we are concerned by the removal of the do no harm and empowerment language from paragraph 17. This change alters the normative orientation of digital public infrastructure, reducing it to a technical asset and detaching it from the rights, safeguards, accountability, and inclusive development. We encourage restarting language that ensures DPI strengthens, not undermines, digital sovereignty and public interest. Third, Rev 2 acknowledges important environmental risks, but frames them mostly as technical externalities. To align with the Pact for the Future, the text should include transparency obligations, environmental due diligence, independent monitoring, safeguards for communities disproportionately affected by extractive supply chains and e-waste. Fourth, we welcome the inclusion of misinformation and disinformation, but the current language does not reflect their differentiated and structured nature. Evidence from Latin America, including our research with women environmental defenders, shows that disinformation is often used strategically to silence, delegitimize, and punish women and marginalized communities who challenges entrenched political and economic interests. We encourage language that acknowledge gender, racialized, and territorial dimensions of disinformation, particularly for indigenous, Afro-descendant, and environmental defenders. Finally, we strongly welcome the decision to make the IGF a permanent UN forum and the commitment to sustainable fund for its secretariat. For Global South actors with limited diplomatic capacity, the IGF remains one of the few truly inclusive governance space. As discussions advance on sustainable finance and will be essential that any strengthening of the IGF also expands its ability to address intersectional issues, racial and gender inequalities, environmental and territorial harms, and the structural asymmetries that shape digital futures. Thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in this space.
Thank you so much. And if I could ask James Kunle Olurundar from ISOC, Nigeria. Apologies for the pronunciation.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's my pleasure to be with you on this call, and I'm so much excited to be able to quickly present our presentation. And this presentation is actually a resultant output of the Nigerian School on Internet Governance 2025, coupled with the review that I did personally. So I try to summarize as much as I can. So I'm going to be very brief. So the first issue I may really need to bring to the fore has to do with the financial mechanism. We believe that there's a need for financial mechanism to be well, articulated in terms of looking at a clear mandate, timeline, and dedicated funding sources. This is very important because we need to go beyond voluntary contributions for digital development, especially for least developed countries. And you will agree with me that this is very, very key. Also, there is a need for clear roadmaps. We try as much as possible to advocate for the requirement that action line facilitators develop. They should develop concrete implementation roadmaps with clear indicators. I think this is very important because when you have a roadmap, there should be clear indicators that will be able to speak to all those relevant issues. And also in that regard, I will really want to mention the issue that has to do with data and monitoring. Yes, I agree that we have data, but we now need to start looking at how we're going to monitor all those data. This is important because, we need a dedicated mechanism for us to be able to improve data gathering on the digital divide, including the collection of disaggregated data based on gender, disability, and geographical spread. This is very important so as to make the monitoring, very, very effective. And I also want to mention the issue of digital public goods and, of course, the digital public infrastructure. This is very key. You will agree with me that the era at which we are now has to do with a lot of DPG and DPI. So we need to start looking at risk mitigations around the digital public goods and the infrastructure. And for us, it looks like even revision 2 has actually weakened this, but we believe that this is supposed to be strengthened so that we have DPIs that are resilient, safe, and inclusive. So please, I think this has to be looked at again. Then also, we are looking at community-led models. There should be an emphasis on the need to prioritize, funding for community-led governance model and concept-driven design for DPI and DPGs. This will ensure that digital systems reflect cultural autonomy and local needs rather than being top-down solution. Yeah, the issue of human rights and ethical dimension too is also important, but I'm not going to dwell so much on that because I know a lot of people have, talked about that, talking about, the protection of the civic space. We need to advocate for, stronger unequivocal language against the use of digital technologies for internet shutdown, mass surveillance, and censorship. So let me just leave it at that because I know that a lot of people have talked about that for the sake of our time. Then, yes, there is need for accountability, especially when it comes to tech companies, especially the big ones. We need to push for a clearer references to the need for human rights, due diligence oversight, and effective remedy mechanism for business enterprises, especially large platforms whose actions impact human rights online. This is very important and this is very dear to our heart. And yes, the need for us to address specific vulnerable groups. And I've listened to a lot of people, and I think a lot has been said in that regard. So I'm not going to dwell so much on that because of time. And let me just quickly mention the issue of gender digital divide, because this is very key for us. We are trying to see how we can have a dedicated focus and new measurable commitment to close and persistent gender digital divide, addressing both access barrier and the specific risk of online violence and abuse disproportionately faced by women and girls. And yeah, this one is less talked about, so I'm going to expatiate more on that. That's the issue of media information integrity and platform. We are looking at sustainability when it comes to action like C9. That is the need for us to ensure explicit recognition of journalism and media sustainability in the outcome document, including their infrastructure access as a form of civic infrastructure essential for democracy and information integrity. And I think this is very important. And let me wrap it up by saying that we are looking at platform dominance, which is very key now, because you all need to agree with me that there are some platforms that are very dominant. So the current WSIS framework has not adequately addressed the structural power and market dominance of light GCAP platforms. And we believe that this needs to be taken care of. And of course, the issue of content distribution, advocacy needs to be pushed for language that addresses competition, taxation, and the need for greater transparency and accountability from all these dominant actors, because they operate in different countries and different climes, and they should be responsible in all those climes. So this needs to be clear. And we can also link this with the Global DESA Compact, which I believe should be able to work hand in hand with the WSIS. Thank you very much for giving me the time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And our next speaker is Gopal Tadipali, formerly Anna University.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I go back to the WSIS 2003, 8th December, exactly 22 years back, Shaping Information Societies for Human Needs was the theme, Civil Society Plenary. Very interesting outcome for that particular event. We are very happy to the team and to the wonderful efforts over the last 22 years in bringing this user needs so nicely, specifically into the document which we are looking at. In addition to the user needs, which are so well covered in points 5, 12, 17, 23, 60, I humbly suggest that we should also progress towards user experience and how we are having these user needs meet the functionality, usability, branding, and even emotion of the users. Without going into specific definitions, it is a great user experience that takes us beyond a functionality to delight and build loyalty. That is something which we have to work on, WSIS, delight and loyalty for users, which should go beyond user needs and go for user experience. The second point that I wish to make is we need to draw a lesson from the field of informatics. The objective facts are data before they are captured. Once they are captured, we need a different term, CAPTA. The digital data is more like a CAPTA, an archaic term, CAPTA. CAPTA is something which gets repeated on our machines. We repeatedly keep processing. We don't know how well it is connecting to the original objective fact or data. So we have to build a responsive civil society towards this term called informatics. I would repeat again as a suggestion, the objective facts are data before they are captured. Once they are captured in the digital form, we use a different term, CAPTA, an archaic term. We are repeatedly working on CAPTA and impinged by CAPTA. We are not having a serious connect, exact match to data. We need to look into this, and therefore I humbly suggest that when we go back to the capacity building, point number 47, I suggest that just before investment, we need to have informatics. Point number 47, it should read informatics, investment, innovation, and technological development. This is under the heading, the enabling environment for digital development. It should have informatics, investment, innovation, and technological development. Second point in the same thing that I wish to make is, in addition to fostering digital development, because of the aforesaid reasons, which my learned audience will automatically build further, we should add the term architect. All stakeholders should have a way of architecting and fostering digital development. So that means that WWW should not be an information dump. It should be an approach which will be having more technology contribution, not only at the level of DNS, domain name, but also go a little deeper into IP and transport layer security. The Implementing World Summit on Information Society Outcomes, a 20-year review, explicitly mentions transport layer security, published by UNCTAD. I would strongly suggest that these technical aspects, not merely a technology or specific domain, may be mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And we are now going to turn over to Henriette, who has a connectivity now. Thank you, Henriette.
Thank you very much, Teresa and everyone, and apologies. I'm speaking on behalf of the Association for Progressive Communications, and really thank you very much to the DESA team, including the co-opted IGF Secretariat and the co-facilitators and the multi-stakeholder sounding boards. We really appreciate your efforts. We'll give a written submission, and we also endorse comments made by coalitions we are part of, notably the Global Digital Justice Forum and the Global Digital Rights Coalition for WSIS. But we want to address financing in particular. We're pleased to see that the paragraph on convening a task force on financing is still there. However, it asks the SG to consider. We would like to see that to be a call for the establishment of this task force, not just to consider establishing it. We also note that the text is looking at financing digital development, not just financing WSIS implementation. And we've deliberated on that. And in fact, we think it is sensible to look at financing digital development, not just WSIS implementation, just in order to prevent further fragmentation of discussions on financing digital development that might emerge from the Global Digital Justice Compact, Global Digital Compact, for example. And we realize that some member states and some other stakeholder groups still have questions about this task force. And we really want to urge them that this is not intended to establish new funds or new mechanisms. We see it as an initiative that would use existing resources. It could use the WSIS Forum, it could use the IGF as platforms for convening. And we feel that the mapping and analysis of mechanisms and assessment of what works well and what could work better would be very useful to both existing financial mechanisms as well as to those who are in need of financing. And it could also be useful for any establishment of a help desk, which I know some member states have proposed. And we also think that this task force could provide useful framing information for developing countries themselves to look at the role of domestic public resources. And then, of course, it can look at private sector investment, partnerships, collaboration, blended mechanisms, and new innovative mechanisms. We also just want to note that we support some of the remarks made previously, notably Marcus Kuma's remarks on the definition of internet governance. And then finally, just a quick reflection on paragraph 19, which is on the growth in connectivity. I know that there has been progress, but I do invite the authors of that paragraph to come and spend at least 6 months in any part of the world where there is not necessarily state-of-the-art connectivity and where there's not permanent electricity supply. So I just urge the authors to be very careful to not overstate the progress. And I endorse the remarks made by Giacomo Mozzoni from the Policy Network on Meaningful Access. Thanks a lot, Teresa.
Henriette, thank you so much. I'm now going to turn it back over to my colleague, Jen. So Jen, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Thank you, everyone. I believe we may have exhausted our list of people who have originally indicated they would like to speak. We have some time now to be able to open up the floor for any of those who would like to speak now. So I've been asked to let you all know you can use the raise hand function. Also, for those speakers who may have missed your turn when we were calling on you, please definitely let us know that you are in the room so we can go to you as well. So now I see some hands. I'm going to look to our Secretariat to let us know if there are hands that I could see.
Jen, we don't have a raised hand yet, but Ruth from ITU would like to speak.
Yes, Ruth, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jen, and good day, everyone. I'm Ruth Sidabutar, speaking on behalf of the ITU. As we engage with Ref 2 of the draft, ITU appreciates the continued progress in refining the text and welcomes the opportunity to reiterate and expand on key elements submitted under Ref 1 with the hope that they will be fully reflected in the next iteration as we head into the final mile. ITU also thanks the co-facilitators for their steady stewardship of this important WSIS+20 process and for the opportunity to present our observations. In the preamble, we would like to recall that ITU member states resolved at its plenipotentiary conference in Minneapolis in 1998, the Resolution 73, to hold a World Summit on the Information Society and to place it on the agenda of the United Nations. ITU also served as the Secretariat for the two-phase summit held in 2003 in Geneva and 2005 in Tunis, as endorsed by UNGA Resolution 56/183, which accorded ITU a lead role in cooperation with all relevant organizations and partners. As the United Nations Specialized Agency for Digital Technologies, ITU has been at the forefront of global digital cooperation with the UN and all stakeholders for the past 20 years, building partnerships, strengthening capacities, and driving digital transformation in line with WSIS outcomes and the 2030 agenda. We would encourage the use wherever possible of the agreed language from ECOSOC resolution, specifically the 2025/18, as this resolution has already been negotiated and adopted by member states. It provides a solid and coherent basis for the WSIS+20 outcome document and would help ensure alignment between ECOSOC and UNGA processes, particularly on the integration of GDC commitments into the WSIS architecture. On UNGIS Para 121, we underline its current effective functioning as an autonomous interagency mechanism built on mutual respect and trust, with ITU serving as its permanent secretariat. We have served in this role since inception and have a dedicated WSIS team supported by ITU resolutions. We would like to underscore the core mandate of the CSTD to continue inviting key UN agencies involved in WSIS implementation to present their implementation work. On Para 109, regarding the GDC, we suggest referencing the Working Group on Digital Technologies, co-chaired by ITU and AUDET, with vice chairs covering all GDC objectives, which currently coordinates implementation of the GDC action points across the UN system. We note that this would also ensure consistency with GDC terminology and existing structures. ITU remains committed to supporting an ambitious, coherent, and future-ready WSIS+20 outcome that continues to serve all stakeholders and ensures that digital technologies advance sustainable development for everyone. ITU will also provide its full written inputs to support the continued refinement of the Ref 2 text. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. I believe we have a hands up from Sherry Sheck. Sherry, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you hear me well? Thank you, distinguished co-facilitators and colleagues. I'm Sherry Sheck, Program Manager at NetVision, a network of young change makers from Asia Pacific committed to empowering youth in internet governance. I speak on behalf of the Asia Pacific youth community who have actively contributed to the WSIS+20 review process. We welcome that RAF 2 retained important youth recognition from RAF 1. Paragraph 3 recognizes youth as a stakeholder in effective multi-stakeholder participation, partnership, and cooperation. Paragraph 119 recognizes the significance of youth commitment in the ongoing implementation of the WSIS outcomes. Paragraph 98 recognizes youth internet governance forums enhancing multi-stakeholder discussion. We especially commend paragraph 100, which decides that the Internet Governance Forum shall be made permanent with stable and sustainable resources. We urge that these texts remain intact. While the draft recognizes youth contribution and its significance, critical elements remain absent. They are supporting and formalizing youth participation, There are 3 reasons why these are structural necessities. First, current governance decisions impact youth disproportionately and over longer time scales. Second, youth bring lived expertise in digital environments and fresh perspectives into emergent challenges. And third, inclusion of youth brings plurality of interest. This helps ensure governance reflect diverse experiences and priorities rather than concentrated decision-making power. Without formalized roles and dedicated resources, youth participation remains consultative, and thus we recommend 3 specific additions. First, in paragraph 89 and 105, we recommend to include youth in the stakeholder list. Second, in paragraph 90, we recommend to add youth as an underrepresented group requiring measures to ensure more effective participation. And third, in paragraph 102, we recommend to add the phrase supporting national and regional initiatives by adding youth behind regional. And furthermore, after the first sentence in this paragraph, we recommend to add, we call for strengthened linkages between youth internet governance forums and the Internet Governance Forum, with formalized youth participation and leadership across the Internet Governance Forum ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sherry. I do not see any hands that are currently raised. The floor is open for speakers who have missed their turn and any of those who are currently here and would like to speak. I see that there is a hand. If Secretariat can help promote Kayode Oyeyemi to panelists, and then we can give them the floor. Please go ahead, Kayode.
Thank you, co-facilitators, and special appreciation to the ambassadors and the IMSB for hosting this stakeholder consultation. My name is Kayode Oyeyemi, Senior Program Officer for AFICTA. AFICTA is Africa ICT Alliance, and our vision is to fulfill the promise of the digital age for everyone in Africa. We have stakeholders across ICT associations, companies, and experts across more than 40 African countries. Our focus today will be on capacity development, paragraphs 58, 59, and paragraph 60 of the WSIS+20 Ref 2. Victor welcomes the strong emphasis on capacity development. Of course, limited capacity remains a major barrier to closing digital divides in Africa, and future efforts must reflect local realities, build sustainable ecosystem, and ensure inclusive participation in the digital economy. First, we stress the need for long-term context-specific capacity development. Africa faces unique challenges: affordability, energy constraints, linguistic diversity, low digital literacy, and many other. Capacity programs must therefore empower communities, support local language content, and strengthen region-specific innovation. Second, AFICTA supports the call for strengthening local content development, which is vital for digital sovereignty and ensuring technology solutions reflect Africa's cultural and social context. Third, we call for predictable, accessible financing dedicated to capacity development. Indeed, sustainable funding is crucial for long-term skills initiatives, institutional strengthening, and regional training hubs. Finally, we recommend establishing a monitoring and accountability mechanism to track progress and ensure capacity building efforts lead to measurable impact towards the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals. Your Excellencies, AFICTA stands ready to collaborate with all stakeholders to advance capacity development and empower communities, support innovation, and accelerate Africa's digital transformation. Thank you most sincerely for the opportunity to intervene. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kayode. Do we have Any other speakers who would like to take the floor? I see Amrita, but I'm not sure if this is Amrita Chaudhary or if this person needs to rename themselves before we give you the floor. If we can clarify, I guess, Secretariat, just to make sure we have the correct attribution to the person who has raised their hand.
Jen, I would just recommend that once they start speaking, they introduce themselves. We will try to change the name manually in the meantime.
Okay, well noted. If we can give them the floor, and if you could please state your name and your affiliation. Currently, I think it's showing up as a wrong affiliation and wrong name. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Wumi Hassan from Nigeria, High-Tech Center for Nigerian Women and Youth. I really appreciate this privilege to speak, and it's such an honor. I'm going to be recommending towards the capacity building and considering females, women, and girls, the young people, and to look into the aspects to consider how we are able to strategize in putting them into segment according to age groups, from consideration of the girls to those who are in the middle age, and then the women who are actually out there to learn different technologies, and then the one great sector that seems not to be considered, the retirees, the senior citizens. For us in Nigeria and for many of the things we have done, High-Tech Center for Nigerian Women and Youth had to, in the last couple of years, realize that the knowledge gap is different across the age gaps. So we need to be able to do a strategic mapping of what exactly should we give to different categories of the citizens, especially women who are in different groups like I've identified. We have a whole lot of women who are into business and they need digital literacy and skills to be able to push their businesses online and become digital citizens. So we need to look into what kind of capacity are we trying to build? What capabilities do we want to give to different groups of people? And then looking out of the gender issues or the women, I want to also speak to the physically challenged, the people with disabilities in the communities. How do we ensure that we have tools and the digital materials that assist us to be able to communicate effectively to these marginalized people? Because it isn't just going to be easy to just assume that we generalize the capacity building. We need to be very strategic, and I'm sure our organization would be interested in partnerships that helps us to have such capabilities and capacity, especially the tools that helps us to do this effectively. And I'm very interested in the senior citizens also. Thank you for this time.
Thank you very much, Wuni Hassan. Do we have any other speakers who would like to take the floor at this moment? You are able to raise your hand, and the Secretariat will be able to promote you to panelists, and you can take the floor. If we do not have any additional speakers who would like to take the floor, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for all of your substantive inputs. The informal multi-stakeholder sounding board is very grateful to have been able to host this and also be able to hear all of your inputs. It will inform our reflections on the Rev 2 of the outcomes documents. I think throughout the entire session, we've been encouraging speakers to send your written inputs to UNGA review. I think UNGA WSIS review. If Secretary could kindly actually put that email on the chat so people can see it. Please do send it to us very, very much right now or soon after this virtual consultation ends. We also have to do our work in turning over our reflections also today to be able to get this sent over to the ambassadors and their team for the process ahead. So thank you very much. The recordings, the transcripts, all of your written inputs will be posted online on the website when it is available and when we receive it. And thank you everyone for your time in making this process something that has multi-stakeholder voices being heard here. Thank you very much again. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Thank you.